Hello, viewers of Spell, and welcome back to another part of What If Midoriya Was a D&D Sorcerer. Now, I'll be putting out this one and then take a look at the views and probably make a compilation video of this sometime in the future. So, if you like this series, let me know in the comments. Liking also helps let me know. And I hope to see you later. But without further ado, let's begin this video. As Midoriya and the rest of Class 1A traveled to the USJ for training, we'd flash over to what Ragnar was doing, which was trying to run to the school because he was late. He hadn't overslept tremendously, but he wanted to get on his armor and pack a few potions, since technically this wasn't combat, but he had seen how crazy it had gotten. He wanted to get some healing potions and whatnot that he had brought with him. All that resulted in him underestimating how long it was going to take, so he was busy rushing to school, finding out that the class had already left, and jogging to the USJ, so he hopefully wouldn't get a lecture from Aizawa. Since he had met the man a few times, thought it reminded him of several rogues he had met, one he had even traveled with, and thought that either he had a tragic backstory, was just a normal pain, or just decided to be insufferable because he didn't want to deal with people. Either way, he was jogging to USJ. Nezu was actually impressed that he was able to jog at that speed with, well, full armor, and all of his weapons. As flashed the USJ, where 13 was giving her explanation of how quirks can be incredibly dangerous. Midoriya nodded, knowing this was the case. As someone mentioned, hey, is there supposed to be fake villains? As everyone looked over, Aizawa looked puzzled, but when he looked down, he said, "Everyone stay back. We're under attack." As a large shadow appeared, as it began disgorging villains, including one covered in hands and another one with a bird-like face and what almost appeared to be its exposed brain. Midoriya was starting to wonder, how did this happen? But judging from the smoke, he assumed that it must be because they had a teleportation quirk. And those were incredibly rare. As Aizawa jumped down to confront the villains, as he managed to start holding them off, the students would try running for the door as that shadow would appear in front of them. Bakugo and Kirishima trying to jump into combat with it, before half the group being teleported away. Midoriya would come through in the earthquake zone, as he quickly focused his mind and cast a spell, Identify Life. As to his shock and somewhat horror, he saw dozens of villains. Grimacing, he prepared for combat, as luckily for him, Bakugo and Denki, a boy with a lightning bolt through his hair, who Midoriya found had an electrical quirk, had both been teleported there with him, as the villains barely knew what hit them. Midoriya used a spell called Ice Blade, as he crafted a blade of ice and began fighting, unleashing minor spells he called cantrips. As he was rather surprised. He didn't expect these villains to be this weak. As Bakugo said, "Yeah, it makes Ragnar's training seem like, it was on hard mode." As Bakugo blew up another villain. In other parts of the facility, other students had been teleported. Battles had broken out. And to most of their shocks, most of the villains were actually pretty weak, unexperienced, and with very few villains that were even at the students' level, which was frankly embarrassing. As Midoriya had remembered something the villain had said right before they had disappeared, that they were there for All Might. As we flashed to Aizawa, disappointed in himself for letting that shadow guy get away. especially after he teleported half the students, as he'd be facing off with the other villains before the man with many hands decided to rush him. As Aizawa would fend him off, the man would touch his elbow with all 5 fingers, as it seemed to have decayed or rotted. Aizawa hopped back, realizing that his elbow was almost shot. And seemingly right as this man was going to say something, the mist villain shot past him, seemingly running from something, as the shadow villain dodged an axe, as Ragnar had arrived 2 seconds earlier. 13 had been heavily injured by the mist villain, as the other students were trying to get around him. Ida was almost around him, having trouble opening up the door, as he got knocked back, thinking that he was going to be captured, as the doors rushed open as Ragnar walked in. In 2 seconds, he saw the mist villain and brought out an axe and charged him, telling Ida to run back and get help. As the mist villain was surprised by Yue's part-time combat instructor. But before he knew it, Ragnar punched him in his physical body, sending him flying quite far, as this warp villain quickly realized that this man was experienced and ready to rumble. Flashing back to the present, Ragnar got in front of Aizawa and asked him how he was doing. Ragnar said, "Your arm got injured," as he detached a small vial, handing it to him. As he said, "Drink it. I already gave one to 13. Hopefully she'll be back on her feet soon." Aizawa sniffed the liquid. It didn't smell bad, the reddish liquid, but as he was pondering it, Ragnar said, "Either pour it on your wound or drink it. We have 2 enemies in front of us." Aizawa felt a little ashamed for being scolded by the man. After all, Aizawa was technically the senior teacher. As the man simply told Aizawa, "Can you neutralize the big guy's quirk?" Aizawa said yes, and said, "Do so, please." As Aizawa began dampening the quirk, as Kogiri said, "Nomu, get him." As Nomu rushed forward, Ragnar managed to just dodge the fist before landing a slice with a short sword he had pulled out. As the Nomu yelled in pain as it swiped down on him, he let go, activating, as he just said, "Time to go into rage." As he put down the sword and pulled out his large axe. It was a dual-headed axe. As he said its name, Frostbiter. As blue mist started wafting off of it, and as he just yelled back to Aizawa, "I should be able to fight him as long as you keep his quirks down. I'll keep him from getting to you." As Aizawa was a little surprised, but he attempted to do it. He had drunk the potion and had already felt his arm slowly mending. It felt similar to Recovery Girl, but he didn't feel as tired. But Aizawa was concerned that he had already used his quirk so much, he was already starting to feel the effects of dry. He didn't know how much longer he could keep this up. As the Ragnar and the Nomu did battle, the Nomu, still, despite all of his quirks being neutralized, was still faster. But Ragnar clearly had more skill and experience, managing to usually not take the brunt of the damage. Though Ragnar's armor had clearly been dented in several places. As this fight would continue on, Aizawa critically trying to keep his eyes open to keep this thing's quirks neutralized, the doors would open again, revealing All Might. And he was not smiling. And that's where we're going to leave it. Little thing to keep in mind, I intended on this being longer, but this is a good ending point, given the fact the rest of it's going to be mostly a fight. I was actually recording it earlier and realized that I had already gotten like 11 minutes of content recorded, so I have most of the next part already done in the recordings bit. And I probably would have added that on if I had another couple days to get this video out. But if you, say, give this video 10 likes and a few comments, I think I might just put out the next part soon instead of taking a break, because I've been putting out content non-stop for the last like 2 months. And I'll probably take a week off here coming up before I introduce a new series and probably return to what if Midoriya was Yami's reincarnation, because the compilation did super well. But without further ado, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Liking helps tell me you like the content. Commenting tells me what exactly you liked about the content. Sharing tells your friends what you're watching. And subscribing tells you when I put out more. With that being said, this is Re, signing off. Hope to see you around the channel.